perspective on real estate topics. Occasionally, you will hear the expert thoughts and opinions of our experienced agents at Boston Connect Real Estate. Be a part of our roundtable. If you have any questions during the show, please call 781-837-4900. We love to talk real estate. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and wherever you like to listen to podcasts at Talk Real Estate Roundtable. If you would like a one-on-one consultation with me and my team to discuss your real estate needs, you can connect with me at bostonconnect.com or 781-826-8000. Now, sit back, relax, take good notes, and let's talk real estate.
And hello to all our South Shore neighbors. You are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I'm joined live and in studio by the one and only Sharon McNamara.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. We're not even sitting in our seats yet.
I know. It's, one of those busy mornings. No matter what time I get here into the studio, I find something to do. I get distracted.
There's always something to do, no matter what.
There's always something to do.
But yeah, speaking of something to do, you're going to be doing a couple open houses this weekend and kind of talking about what we're doing today on the show. We're talking about things to consider when buying or selling a condo. And you are going to be doing an open house, at least at a condo tomorrow. And then you have some condos today too, right? Over in Cochise?
Yeah, so Cochise Estate. So for those who listen every weekend, you know that Mary and I, our team, McNamara Horton Group, we have a couple of subdivisions, and both of them offer condos. And the joy of condo living, which is easier for people because they don't have to worry about all the landscaping and snow removal and all those things. Today I believe Faith is going to be doing my open houses over at Cushing Trails, and that is in Hanson. So we have 40 units over there, 3 different styles. Some have a 2-car garage, the others have a 1-car garage, lots of space, really a lot of space. So she'll be over there today, 10 to 12. I don't know who is there tomorrow, 10 to 12, but maybe me. No, I can't be there because I'm going to be at Liberty Drive tomorrow.
Yeah.
41 Liberty Drive, which is Center Commons in Pembroke. We just, 3 weeks ago, put on 36 Patriot Way, which is in the same subdivision.
Yeah, and I love those. Those are really nice. If I was, 55 plus, I would definitely be looking at those. But Michelle is at Cushing tomorrow, so and then Team Flynn is over at Cochise tomorrow as well.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll be at Cochise today myself.
Yeah, so busy weekend.
Yes,
busy weekend. But because of those two, really, you've had condos at the 2 developments for quite some time now, but because of the 2 condos that you... Oh, I can hear.
Sorry.
Because of the 2 condos that you recently put on in Center Commons, this is the reason why we're doing our show. We always come up with ideas for the show based off of what's going on in our business or in our industry, because we've been doing some shows about the NAR settlement. But today is all about condos.
Yes, absolutely. If you have any questions. Oh, and we also have Dave in studio today. He is in for Tim. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Sharon. How's it going?
Any better? I'd be on vacation, Dave. I'm just living the dream over here.
I know. Tim picked a good weekend to take off.
He sure did.
Beautiful weekend.
Feels like apple picking, though, doesn't it? A little bit?
Yeah,
it's going to get up to the 80s
Oh,
today.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, 80s is nice.
Yeah. Sure is. It's good to be with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here. So, and if you have any questions for us, whether it is in regard to the subject that we're talking about right now or anything to do with real estate, certainly feel free to give me or give us a call into the studio, and then they'll get us over to you know what I mean.
You'll be able to talk to us.
You want to give them the number?
781-837-4900. You can call or text that number. Again, 781-837-4900. We are live on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube. So be sure to follow Boston Connect Real Estate, McNamara Horton Group. Sharon McNamara. We're everywhere. So we're waving to you. Hello. Well, at least I am. I'm waving.
Hello.
So say hi to us. So if you're a little shy and don't want to call or text the studio, give us a little message on one of those social medias, and we'll be sure to give you a little shout out or answer any questions you may have.
Absolutely. Oh, here, it's nice to be with you.
Yep, there's my mother. She's listening. She's
Hello,
watching us on
Liz.
Instagram.
Hello, Liz.
Yeah, so, all right, kicking it off.
Yeah, we're kicking it off. All right. So what do you want to talk about first? Buying or selling is what I mean.
I would say let's do selling.
Okay.
Right? Okay, let's do selling. What would be sort of the first thing? So you do your listing appointment, you get the listing, woohoo, we celebrate. What's the first step that you sort of tell your clients when they're getting ready to put their condo on the market?
Hold on. No, that isn't what I say to them.
Yeah.
I say to you. So when I'm when I'm going on a CMA, I'll be honest. I mean, it's generally the same, my first appointment when I am talking to, clients about putting their condo on the market. Generally the same questions about, the house and all those other things. But I would say, one, when we're talking about condos, because that's our topic today, I'm always talking about, the HOA and is it management run? Is it self-run by, the people who live there? That's also a really good question if you're buying. So a lot of these questions can go both ways, whether you're buying or selling. It is really, really important if something is management run or if it's self-run by the residents who live there. I'll give you what my thoughts are on that, pros and cons to both, I suppose. And, what are the HOA fees? What is included in the fees? Everything is different. Is this, an age-restricted, adult-only community? All of those types of questions. And do you have a copy of the condo docs? Do you have a master deed? Do you have all of these things available? The budget is really important. For me, as a buyer's agent, I'll get into that when we talk about buying, I guess, but just making sure that they have all the documents that pertain to that development on hand, because for the most part, when people are putting, what we do when we put the listing in MLS anyways, is we attach all of those items to MLS, so agents who are working with buyers can easily just get all of that information, because a lot of times it will say contingent upon the review, and I always put review and acceptance of the condo docs, and it will let certain things about the condo. What are the pet restrictions, and what about parking restrictions, and all these things. One of the things that I've done recently to help me, even so, Center Commons, you just announced Center Commons. I'm going to be over there tomorrow. I was the original listing agent on that development when it started, and I remember that he purchased the land. It was on the day of 9/11, and I remember when that was Grandpa Tom's farm, for those of you in Pembroke that are familiar. And he was there on 9/11, and in the attorney's office. I have to get this coffee. I wish I just could do this intravenously. My goodness, what is wrong with me today? So the names of the roads in there are Liberty Drive, Patriot Way, and Freedom Circle, for obvious reasons. And it was interesting. So here's a fun fact about Center Commons. I don't know if I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. When I first got this subdivision with him, I was walking up the street and there were only 2 buildings up, and the assessor's office is the one that starts and initiates what the numbers are for each one. It doesn't always go 1, 3, 5, 7, So we looked, and he's showing me around, and he showed me where the model was, and I was like, oh, did you do that on purpose? And he's like, what? I go, well, your first unit when you come up the street is 9, which makes your second one 11. For 9/11, the hair on his arms was standing straight up.
Yeah.
He was like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that. So anyways, it's just fun facts to know little things about subdivisions. But that subdivision in particular was one of the first 55 plus developments on the South Shore, certainly in Pembroke. And in that development, only one person has to be 55. In others, both people or whoever's living in there has to be 55, no matter how many people are living in there. But that was 2000. So when we started, he passed on the land 2001. So it must have been like 2004, 2005, 2002, 3, whatever. That's when we started selling them. And so that was a long time ago. So of course I'm like, well, they've probably made adjustments or some amendments to those condo docs since I've been here all those years ago. And I've had Mary and I have had several listings in there, resales in there over the years, but we didn't have ChatGPT at that time. So somebody had asked me a question recently and I was like, oh, let me look into that. So I made a chat GPT for the condo docs.
Oh.
So I was able to just go in there and easily write, what are the requirements or restrictions regarding pets? And whoop, you got to tell you, I love it. I hate to say less reading, but you know what? It's less reading and fumbling. So, so reading through those condo docs is important.
Yeah. What are some other documents that you would ask your client to sort of make sure that they have on hand before going live?
I sort of said them. I'm not going to say the big one until we talk about the buyers. Is that the one you're thinking about?
Just any of them, really.
Yeah. So the condo docs, which would be the rules and regulations, the master deed, which would have all of, the requirements that are in there as well. I would ask for the budget, the most recent budget. Because that's important to know the health of the development. You want to certainly know that. And I would also be asking for if there are any special assessments and have they gotten any notices or anything about having a special assessment. And I remember one time Mary and I had a listing. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago at this point, and I remember it was so hot that day. Oh my God! I remember closing on that day, but a couple weeks before we were closing, the association got a notice that they were going to have a special assessment. So you really do have to be watching that up until the minute that you are closing. And here's the thing too is, and actually we recently had it when we just sold a couple of units here in Pembroke over at Jefferson Square. In the midst of going back and forth and doing negotiating and getting them sold, actually, something came up with the well. So they have to do a major repair on the well. Well, I had no idea about it. The sellers had no idea about it. So those are things that potentially could come up, a special assessment. So you should be ready and prepared for those.
Okay, so talking about the special assessment, so say you get notice that there's going to be a special assessment, but it's going to be next year. You notify, the buyer, but because they will own the unit, they're responsible for it. Can they say, oh, well, never mind, I don't want to buy the house because I can't, or buy the condo because I can't afford the special assessment?
If it happens after the fact and you haven't closed and it's after purchase and sales agreement, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then that's when we call in the attorneys, and the attorneys have to hash all that out. I mean, and then again, does it reopen for negotiation? I'm sure that somewhere in the condo association, not the condo association, somewhere in the purchase and sales agreement, it probably says if any special assessments should arise during this process before we close, one, there'll be a conversation about it, or maybe it's already stipulated who will be responsible to pay for it. Now, I know in some situations, the buyer and seller will split it. The seller, for the most part, the seller doesn't want to leave, the buyer with a big responsibility of, having this condo, a special assessment landing on them.
Yeah.
A lot of times that, people don't want that. And then maybe there are the people who would try to hide it, but you can't hide it because everything is dated. So even if you didn't say, hey, I got this special assessment in the mail 2 weeks before we closed, it's dated. So the person purchasing it, certainly it would come to their awareness, and somebody would say, hey, look at the date on this. This was 2 weeks before I closed. And then I would say that would be a 63A lawsuit of some sort, right?
I remember when I was looking at single families, but I had gotten sort of discouraged, and I started like, let me expand my sort of looking. And I started looking at condos, and there was a condo that had a special assessment. So the fee ended up being like almost $800 a month. And so I had asked, what was the special assessment for? And it was an older community, so they had just replaced all the roofs, the front doors, the windows. So each unit had the decision of either paying in full what they would owe or financing it. And this particular unit, couldn't come up with, I think it was like $50,000 per each unit. Didn't have $50,000, which neither would I. So they decided to finance it, but anybody purchasing that condo would have to take over that payment as well to continue that. So
And
it was
in a
out
way-
of my budget.
Yeah, and in a way, you can sort of understand why the seller was saying, I'm not taking on a $50,000 responsibility, is probably because, they're not really the ones reaping the rewards of that. I mean, that's the new
they had
homeowner.
been paying it so for at least a year. So they had to take on like the loan part of it until they had paid it all off. So that's why their particular fee for that unit was almost $800 a month.
Wow. Yeah, so those are the things that you do have to consider when you are, purchasing a condo. So, yeah. I see you typing away over there.
Yeah.
Again, to all, good morning, Dee. Dee is watching. She's on Facebook. Hi, Dee. She's one of our regular listeners here. But if you are listening through WATD this morning, you're listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. I am Sharon McNamara, the broker owner of Boston Connect Real Estate. We are live in our studio here with my co-host, Melissa Wallace. She's the director of operations here at Boston Connect Real Estate. We do not have Tim in studio today. We have Dave in studio this morning. But if you have any questions for us regarding real estate, whether it has to do with this topic of buying and selling a condo or any other topic, feel free to give us a call, 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900. You can now text that number as well. So if you would like to text a question, feel free to do that, and Dave will be watching for that, and he'll get us your question.
A point that I'd like to say is, just like single family homes or even new construction developments that are, single families, condos can be different from condo. So, two condos next to each other can be and especially when there's a couple going on the market at the same time, they're not particularly going to be the same units. They're not all going to have the same things or amenities. Some may have hardwood, some may have carpet in the bedroom, some may have finished basement, all those things. So even condos can be different from one another in the same community, much like the homes on the same street.
Yeah, and it's interesting, if the condos be, new construction like we're doing over at Cushing Trails and Cochise Estates, the homeowner gets to use whatever flavor they like inside and in the interiors. And that's one of the things, I did a bunch of videos and got our professional photographer out before we closed on it's the Hanson is the same model. And that's, one of our units over at Cushing Trails. And we have about 2,600 square feet of space in each one of them with a one-car garage. But when you went into all three of these units, all three of them looked so completely different, and it was based on their taste. The other thing to really consider too is, like, if you're doing like with condos, and I guess that this comes buying and selling is sort of melding into one here, but is it a townhouse style or is it levels? So do you have one unit here, and then there's another unit above you, So we see a lot of that, like in Quincy and Weymouth.
Style.
Yeah, like the garden style would be like on the first floor. But something to consider when you're looking at those rules and regulations is, and sometimes people don't see it, is you can't put hardwood in certain areas of your condo, especially like maybe the first floor, you're allowed to do that because there's no one under you. But don't just assume if you go in and look at a condo and, you have someone below you and somebody above you, that you can just go in and rip the carpet out of the living room and add hardwood floor. Chances are you would not be able to do that because, when you're walking around in your heels in the morning,
Like Sharon. We
Like
always
me.
know where she is in her house when we're on the phone with her.
Yep. It's down, the person below you would be able to hear that noise. So that's why you just have to really look into things. And, the pros and cons of having a condo is, as a seller, and well, we're talking about sellers, but they're melding, Mel. So
Yeah,
I
they're
can't help
melding.
it.
I don't think we can separate them.
They're melding. But like as a homeowner, living there, it's nice because you don't have to worry about the snow removal or, the landscaping, those bigger ticket items, that's part of the association. A lot of times the fee for trash is included, but again, check because not
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Sometimes you, like mine on Liberty, you have to pay the trash bill with the town and the town will pick up your trash. So there are a lot of different things that you, if you're buying, should be looking at. But now, as we are realizing the importance and the value of the buyer's agent after last week's show, what we discussed, those are the things that your buyer's agent can be helping you with. But certainly, if you have those are like you should have a list of questions because your attorney is probably reviewing those condo docs for you as well. But you should be going through them to see, what is really included in that condo fee.
I think when it comes to condos, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think when it comes to condos, it's almost even more important to get sort of a backstory or a story of what it's like to live there from your clients. So, they can tell the next buyer, or you can tell the next buyer why they loved it so much or why they enjoyed being a part of this little community. Because I think there's sometimes I hear from, people in everyday life, not necessarily, people that we work with every day say, oh, I don't want a condo. I don't want to have to deal with, all the personalities and, with the board and people telling me what to do and what this is my, property or, little home there. But I think that it's almost even more important to sort of get a little backstory from your client and say, what did you love about living in this community, and relaying that to potential or the buyer.
Yeah. Well, and that is one of the things that sometimes people will say, I don't really like living in a condo or a townhouse is because of the restrictions. And the restrictions are there on purpose because they want it to be uniformed. They want everything to be the same, look the same. There are some condo developments where you could put on. Okay, so like when I was over at Liberty, when I first took on Center Commons, when I was the original listing agent over there in 2003, 2004, one of the things that you were able to do is put a screened-in sunroom on the back porch. You were able to do that, and some people did. Well, somewhere along the line, they decided that they didn't want that because they wanted everybody's to look the same. So I feel like sometimes I do think that the restrictions that these associations put on other people are a bit much.
Yeah.
Especially like the dog one. This is one of the things I've said in the past too, because obviously I've been in Pembroke alone for 32 years. I've probably sold something in every one of the condo developments that we have in Pembroke. And when they make changes and adjustments, I honestly wish that they would just call me. When I was over at Jefferson Square and we were selling those, and I remember the president came in, and that one is self-managed. And the president came in, this was a couple years ago, he was saying to me, or maybe last year, he said, that there was going to be a new dog rule, no dogs, or dogs only dogs under 20 pounds. And I was like, well, my French bulldog is 19 pounds. She has a good male. She's potentially at the 20.
Yeah.
And I said, before an association makes that decision and it was based on maybe one person having a dog that went haywire or whatever, something happened, it wasn't the dog's fault, it was the owner's fault. So you have to have, the rules.
No owners, only dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Only dogs allowed.
Exactly. It's not the dog's fault. But, what I said is, especially after COVID, so many people got dogs. So there are so many people, but you are limiting your market of buyers who will purchase in here. You are bringing down the market value of your own property by making some of these decisions.
Yeah.
And when the condo docs are initially created for any of these subdivisions, a lot of thought goes into it. And it's thought for future, not just your purchase, but when you go to sell and keeping that market value where it should be. And when I was talking to him, he's like, well, this is the reason why, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I understand. I was like, but did you think of this perspective? Now you have a bunch of dogs under 20 pounds, so potentially you're going to have all Chihuahuas in here barking away all day long. Has anybody thought of that?
I know. I'm trying to think of any other dog that would be below 20 pounds.
There are not many.
A little teacup dog.
Yeah. But you could have
even a wiener dog, I feel like, is above 20 pounds.
Yeah. I know. You could have a really big gerbil.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Well, Benny is probably 14 pounds at this point, but Benny's a cat, but he's big. He looks like a big boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could have a big gerbil.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is if we get into that process of thinking about what you can and cannot do, I just feel. I understand wanting the exterior to all look the same, but to change something from you, people purchased in there because they were able to put a sunroom on in the back at one point. You know what I mean? Maybe people want to, maybe people don't, but put the restriction on what you can build versus you can't build at all. And I think that just, we're going to get into it too, how I feel about self-managed and with a management company and the mixture of two. So the mixture of two is certainly.
We will get into that. If you have any questions or comments about this topic, you can call or text the studio 781-837-4900. We are live on Facebook too. I can see quite a few people watching us, and we're waving hello, people. These are all the people on
Hello,
Instagram.
everybody. Nice to see you.
Morning, D. I think May McNamara was watching us for a minute. Hello, May.
Hello, May. Yeah, so back to the dog thing too. So a lot of times with the pet policy, it will be based on the breed and the size. So I think going by the breed is the most important. I don't think that the size really matters, in my opinion. I know over at Liberty it's 35 pounds, or no, you know what I mean? The dog can't be over 35 pounds. But, somebody could have a golden retriever that's 50, Oh, what about my English bulldog, Gracie? She literally couldn't run to the door right now if she tried, but she's 55 pounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just think that it should be, my opinion, is breed specific, not weight specific. And the breed specific generally follows a line with what the insurance will cover and what the insurance won't cover. So if you have a pit bull, chances are you're not getting it in a condo, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And the other one too for restrictions is parking. So look into the parking if that's important to you, other than that you have your space, your garage and your driveway.
Speaking of parking, so what is the difference between deeded space and assigned parking space?
So in condos, there's usually one or the other, obviously. It's either assigned or deeded. A deeded parking would be that it is within your deed, that this is your parking space. So like if I think about Liberty and I think about Cushing Trails and I think about Cochise, those all have like a driveway, their own driveway. So, you know what I mean? So that's their property. But in some instances, when you have condos that don't have like the garage in the driveway, that is sort of like you can definitely tell this is where my parking space is. So one that comes to mind right now is Pembroke Village, which I was also the listing agent on that when that one was first built. And that just has, all of the buildings going around, and then there's just parking spaces. And one could assume like, hey, these parking spaces are in front of my unit, they would be mine. Usually you would see those being assigned. So, okay, unit 1, your parking spaces are going to be 1 and 2. Unit 2, yours are going to be 3 and 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sort of goes around like that, like it's just assigned. I would say, I've never seen this happen, but if it's deeded to you, so in your deed it would say Unit 1 has parking spaces 1 and 2. Then no one can ever change that. If it's assigned and it's just like, okay, this is what your parking space is, anybody in this, like, they could have a meeting one day and say, you know what, let's just shuffle things up to have a little excitement down here. So Unit 1, you're now parking over at your parking space is now 22.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think of reasons why they would change like an assigned parking spot.
They generally don't.
Maybe I'm thinking maybe like handicap access or something.
Potentially, I've never seen it happen, but you asked me the question, I just answered it.
I was trying to work it out with you.
Okay, perfect. Well, we figured it all out. Yeah. So assigned is one and deeded is the other. So, and it's usually in there like how many spaces you will get. And then another good question and a common question that we get is there any guest parking? And that would be an important question to ask, especially if you do a lot of entertaining or if you have guests all the time. You would want to know where the guest parking is. And is there overnight parking?
I was just going to say if there's overnight parking too, because some don't allow overnight parking.
We do not allow overnight parking in our developments.
And additional to that is types of vehicles that can be there. So we want to talk a little bit about maybe some restrictions when it comes to the vehicles themselves.
Yeah, and again, this is why you want to read those condo docs. And if you feel pressured when you're putting in an offer, and you're feeling pressure that you don't have time to do it, then always make it a contingency of your offer that basically says that, it's contingent upon you, reviewing, and accepting those condo docs. But most part, you can't, like Mark, when he had his big box truck, right, especially, and it had McNamara plumbing on the side of it. For the most part, like work vehicles like that are not allowed to be parked there. No storage of boats that are on trailers, no RVs, like dirt bikes, jet skis and stuff like that. Usually there'll be restrictions of where you can put those. The other big one is rentals. And can you rent out your unit and rent out your condo? And you certainly want to be looking at that because there may be restrictions on that. So if you have a beautiful property that's maybe on a pond or on one of the lakes around here or maybe near the ocean, don't just assume that you can Airbnb it because you may not be able to, because there may be a restriction in there that says you're allowed to rent your unit, but it has to be over 6 months or something like that, or minimally a year. And you know what I mean? I would say that is a big thing in Florida. And I actually just looked down at my phone and I can see that Rue did join me because I was going to introduce her to talk about some condos in her area as well. I don't even know what time it is. Yeah, we will probably get a chance to get to her. But I would say that that's probably a bigger one down in Florida. Like, how often can you rent it? Can you do Airbnb? Are there restrictions? I know down in Florida, I don't know the intricacies of this, but I know that insurance is a huge, I'm just going to call it an ordeal, for lack of a better term. It's sort of a big deal down there right now with getting insurance for that. And that's the other thing too, like, what does the master insurance cover? So the master insurance generally will cover like all the common areas of your development. So if somebody trips and falls, out on the street, things like that are covered for that. And when we're talking about the condo docs, right? I mean, the condo fees. One of the things in there to really, really think about. Now, this is coming from me with my experience. I have listed a lot of new construction developments that are condos, and I see a lot of them out there, and I have a lot of buyer clients as well that will have the condo fees are really low a lot of times with new construction. And the reason that it can be lower with new construction is because, generally speaking, the developer is the one that is taking care of, the roads and the landscaping, and their subs are doing everything, and their employees. So the costs can really be a little bit more manageable for them. So if you are enticed by a new condo, because of the condo fee, just keep that in mind, that chances are once you take it over within 2 years, you're going to soon find out that you'll probably have to have an increase. That's what I love about I'll use Cushing Trail, for example. Our condo fees are already where we know that this budget should be in the long term. So they're putting money aside. So it's, instead of being, okay, your condo fee is going to be $225 a month, we're saying, no, your condo fee is $389 a month, and this is the reason why.
Yeah.
So we have 3 different levels of condo fees based on the size of the unit that you have. So $349 up to $389. But we're putting money aside for a management company. We're putting money aside for reserve. We're putting money aside for septic, like pumping and things like that. So I know some people have said to me, oh, well, it seems like your condo fees seem really high. Well, they're not really high. They're really realistic.
Yeah, I was just going to say they're realistic to a development that is just literally developing.
Exactly. And not only that is, once the whole development is done, no builder, I know especially ours, Stonebridge Homes, they don't want to leave the association in a situation where they're underwater or things are bad. Like, they don't want to do that. They want to leave everything healthy for them to take over. And I think having those lower HOA fees to entice people to come in is something that people should really, really think about, because think about this. And firsthand, at one point when you didn't think that you could get a single family, you were looking at condos. And then once you put that condo fee in there,
Yeah.
it made a big difference.
Yeah, it ended up being more
Yeah.
than I was budgeting for
Yeah.
for a single family. So I went back to single families.
Yeah. So when you are in a condo and if they are suddenly not able to make the payments, or you have, what I mean, your budget is, almost in the red after one good snowstorm, going up on condo fees, although it sounds like, all right, well, it looks like we have to raise the fees. Well, that might be okay for some of the unit owners, but some of the unit owners may not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So now you end up in a situation where people aren't paying their full HOA fee. So I just say be cautious about that and ask questions about that if you're buying.
Yeah. Did you talk about the difference between the associations? So like management run? No,
I haven't. So one of the other things too, I'll go back to, since we decided to meld these two things together. One of the things that, when we were talking about what papers do you ask for, what correspondence and what documents do you ask for, when I am a buyer's agent, I like to ask for the last 6 months of the condo association minutes of the meeting. And the reason why I like to do that is because now I'm looking backwards at what they have been talking about. So maybe, and 6 months to me is a good range, because now, especially in New England, like within seasons,
Yeah.
So they might be having a meeting in, March that says, we certainly didn't put enough money aside this year for snow removal. We should consider an increase in that in our condo fee to cover it for next year. So we have an overage. They might be saying things like, in older developments, this is really important. Of course, new construction, you're not going to have any minutes, but in older developments or older units, they might be saying, okay, we have to redo the parking in, building 1 and building 2. So they're going to have to, so special assessments potentially could be creeping up. So that's why it's good to look at that. And I've talked about this on the air before. I remember one of my clients, I was helping her daughter find a condo. She was a young girl, and it was down in Plymouth in one of the bigger developments. And in the condo docs, I read that the tenant, there was someone who was a renter, so the tenant had been harassing the female residents in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So you'll hear these types of things. You'll see, the comments and things that they're talking about with dogs and landscaping and different things.
Yeah, there was one time where I had brought my cousin actually to see a condo somewhere, and they were doing an open house, and it was they were very persistent about being like, oh, go to the back of the building, don't use the front door. And I'm like, well, I wonder what's going on with the front door. So I went to the front door, and there was a notice saying, like, if your car has been broken into lately, like, please call management company. They were having like a break-in issue. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you're going to purchase in here.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, well, see, and that's
Take a look around, walk around, you know. You never know what notices. You never know what notices you're going to see.
Yeah, look at the notices for sure. And again, that is a good reason why you should ask for those condo, those minutes of those meetings. That type of stuff would come up, and sometimes these associations, they also have, monthly newsletters and things like that. Ask the listing agent, hey, do you have any of this information? And if you are the listing agent, perhaps you are asking, do you have any correspondence or anything that we can share with the home buyers as they're coming in? Because most times they're going to definitely ask you for the budget. Because especially if they're paying with a mortgage, they're going to be asked that question. So the differences between a mortgage company and I'm not a mortgage company, sorry about that, having a management company sort of running and taking care of it versus, self-managed by the residents. You had said it earlier that, in any place where you go, there's different personalities, and there are, just different personalities.
Everybody is different.
But, the thing is, I'm just thinking about certain ones that I have really dealt with over the years. And it's interesting because when I see the self-managed ones, it becomes about emotions. And that's what I think isn't what you don't want to get into. You don't want to get into the emotions. For me, I'm very black and white when it comes to that, by the way. I want a management company, in my opinion, treat this like a business, right? That's what I want you to do. I want you to treat this like a business because it is a business, right? Sometimes when you have self-managed people doing it, when those personalities come into place, to me, what I've seen and what I've witnessed, because again, I have been the marketing agent and listing agent on several new construction. I've been doing this for 21, 22 years. Several new construction condo developments. I have been the agent, and I've seen it happen in most. I can't even sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is when you are self-managed, it ends up being very cliquey. So I'll just give you an example. And I'm not saying that this is the case for every single one. I'm just giving you what I have seen, and it's my show. I can be as real and transparent and raw as I want to be right now. Sometimes, so let's just say Unit 1 decides to be the president. Unit 2 is the treasurer. Unit 3 is the secretary. And Unit 4 is, what else is on there? The secretary and then the vice president. Yeah, right? When you have okay, so now you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now they're trying to come and make decisions. And maybe 3 of them are in agreement and 1 is not. And then when they go
it's like
to
a jury.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is they're not the only ones that have a vote, right? So if there are 15 units in the development, I hope I'm not giving away which one I was literally thinking about that this happened in, but there are 15 units, and 2 of the people, 3 of the people on the board are all in agreement with something. Well, and then the 1 isn't. Well, then that 1 goes to all the other, owners and is trying to rally the troops on their side. It just becomes very cliquey and very argumentative. It just does. And that's because of emotions. I say take the emotions out of it and have a management company take care of it and run it like a business. You can still have your association who's there to, just make sure that things are being maintained and taken care of the right way. And that.
Yeah. And I think that that's important too, because unless you live there, you don't really know what the community needs. So having somebody be able to speak up and say, exactly what, okay, this isn't working, or that, especially with the new development, I think that is important. But I agree, having a management company running it like a business. If I'm putting my money into something, I want it to be run correctly. We only have about 10 minutes left. I know you wanted to introduce somebody, one of your
Yes.
friends from Clubhouse, and then obviously we have some open houses this weekend, but
Yep.
I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, there was something else I was going to say, though, about the association, and I can't remember right now what it was. But
You'll think of it tonight.
I'll think of it tonight for sure. But anyways, that's where we are. 781-837-4900. Again, if you have any questions for us, again, I'm Sharon McNamara. I'm the broker owner of Boston Connect Real Estate. I am here with my co-host, Melissa Wallace. She is the director of operations here at Boston Connect Real Estate. And if you don't like this topic, feel free to call us, ask us a question, 781-837-4900. You can also text your question to Dave, who is in studio today, 781-837-4900. And if you just want to say hello, hey, we're up for hellos as well. And I think aren't we always giving out Dunkin' Donuts things? Isn't that bribery? We'll bribe you to be a caller.
Call us.
Yeah. So one person that I did want to talk to today, and I'm hoping that the sound is okay. Rue, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
All right, nice. So, Rue, can you, I know that you popped in real quick last week. We were just sort of testing out some of our equipment here. We got it working again, yeehaw. But we were going to be talking about condos this week, and I sort of hinted a little bit about it earlier. So what we see here in this time of year, especially when people are thinking, I can't do another New England winter. I want to be a snowbird. I want to live here in a condo, and I want to live there in a condo. First, introduce yourself. Let everybody know where you are and the areas that you service. And keep in mind, I really only have like 5 minutes, six minutes to do this, so we can get our open houses in tonight. And then I want you to discuss what you're seeing in the condo world down there.
Thank you. This is Rue Clares. I am in Orlando, Florida. I service the greater Central Florida area, which includes Kissimmee, Osceola, Seminole. It's a big span of the state. And as far as residential real estate, anything from a condo to a single family home with 20 bedrooms in it. So all points in between. I'm hoping I answered all of those questions. Do you want my phone number and stuff, or is that?
Yeah, you can give your phone number, certainly.
Sure. So if you want to ask me questions directly, you can reach me at 407-493-5615. And as far as the condo land, we are experiencing some very interesting times down here because of probably a world-known a situation in Miami where an entire building collapsed and created quite a hullabaloo in the condo world, which has instituted new standards for reserves, for upkeep, maintenance, things like that, and structure. And we've had to revisit any condo building that is 3 stories or higher. So it's been quite a new situation that's happening down here. And everything has to be in place by, I want to say, May of 2025, as far as that goes.
And so what you're seeing is an influx in inventory, right? So again,
Yes.
to my WATD listeners, Rue is a friend of mine who lives down in Orlando, and we met through Clubhouse. And you've heard a lot of my friends that I have on Clubhouse, and I love to bring people on here from other states because I listen to them and talk with them every day, and it's really interesting to see how things are so different here versus there. So you are having a problem with, inventory. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, is it just people aren't doing it because they're afraid, or the expense, or what's going on?
So, because of this new law that's been put into effect, you have to have a certain amount of money in reserves, and every building is going through an inspection. Some of them are going through 2 inspections. So you have to pass the first inspection, and then you have to address if you didn't pass anything that comes up. And then if you don't address it correctly, you could potentially fail your second inspection. Because of that, what is happening is that some buildings are receiving enormous assessments. An assessment is a one-time charge that is billed to the owner. And in other cases, the HOAs are deciding to spread the additional monies that they need over time to build up the reserve. So, for example, there is some condos in South Florida, which is closer to the event, that are looking at assessments of over $100,000
For each unit?
Yes, per unit. So if you own two, you get $200,000. And the problem with that is that many of these people, and when you think about our world here, we are the retirement capital of the U.S. and potentially the world, in some cases. And these people are coming here with the expectation that I bought this cute little unit that they're going to maintain, and I just get to live my life by the shore and dip my toes in the sand whenever I want. But no, now I get to spend $100,000, and my insurance goes up because insurance is being impacted as well. To a client of mine whose HOA has doubled per month from when she purchased it a couple of years ago, and they haven't even completed their assessments yet.
Wow, that sounds
So
terrible.
it is. And what's happening is, condos have become, at least in our state, have become the entry-level home, have become the retirement home because of their quote-unquote affordability. So this is really putting a major kink into things. And then a lot of people rent the condos out. So now what's happening, because of the rising costs in HOA and assessments, they're having to rethink that because they can't get the amount of rent that they need to cover all their expenses. So it is creating a big sell-off in many places, specifically and most targeted in the South Florida market. They're the first ones to, I want to say that they have one building that they're selling like 18,000 units in that one building.
So do you think it's going to end up one of those things where when we had, the demise of our industry, like 2008, 9, 10, where people were just, people were getting the no-doc loans, right? And they had no skin in the game. Do you think that people are just at the point where they're like, hey, I'm not investing this much in here. I'm just going to leave the keys on the counter and let the bank take care of it? Are you going to see more foreclosures?
So, obviously I don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
And I'm not as smart as many people out there that study this stuff day in and day out. But I will say that I think that there will become a place where they will not be able to sell it. Because, I mean, think of this. You've got 18,000 condos on the market.
Wow.
I mean, who's going, in one building, who is going to pay top dollar for that condo? No one. They're going to go for if they all look the same, they're going to go for the cheapest one.
It's going to be a race to the bottom.
It's going to be, yes, it'll be a total gut job. And there are going to be people that will not be able to get their money out. They will be upside down. So it's definitely a nightmare watching. We're watching it happen.
All right, so we have run out of time. I can't believe it already. So you know what, Rue? I'd love to talk about this more if you have availability next week, and we can talk about more of the snowbirding, okay? Because I want you to give some positives about being able to move out of here and finding something down there. If you want to find all of the open house for Boston Connect Real Estate this week, you can go on to bostonconnect.com. You can find it. And also, if you follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all that, you know what? We put out some really good stuff out there. So follow us on all of those avenues, and you'll find out where all of our open houses are this weekend. Or give me a buzz, 781-294-4848. Have a great weekend. We'll be back Tuesday. Not sure what the topic is.
Yes, I'll be back Tuesday, so be sure to listen in, 6:15 to 7.
All right, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Rue.